Samsung has focused on its camera technology with nearly every major phone release, and this year follows in the footsteps of its predecessors. But do these new features actually improve the camera quality at the end of the day? This year, Samsung is focusing on a new trick called variable aperture, where the camera will use the f-stop 2.4 lens in most lighting conditions, and switch over to an f-stop 1.5 lens when the brightness measures under 100 lux. That's the lowest f-stop you're going to find on a smartphone right now. You won't notice this change in the software, and you'll only really see it when looking closely at the lens itself. Toggling between the two in manual mode helps us measure the difference between the two lenses pretty easily. Samsung chose the f-stop 2.4 lens for normal shots because it's considerably clearer than the lower f-stop 1.5 lens, and comparing the two side by side really brings light to this. Distortion around the edges of a lens are pretty common, but this one is pretty bad for many subjects. Thankfully, it's only used in extremely low light conditions where you'll likely not even notice such distortion, and it actually helps quite a bit in these conditions. In our tests, it effectively allows the shutter speed to drop in half, giving the camera just as much light in a quicker amount of time, thus lowering the possibility of introducing blur into a shot with a slower shutter speed. For some shots in particular, it may also be desirable because it has a more shallow depth of field and it blurs the background a little bit more. It's a win-win for sure, and it's a great example of innovation from Samsung. At the end of the day, does this mean better low-light performance? Maybe. That's the long and the short of it really, because while it can perform better than the Galaxy Note 8 in low light, it doesn't always, and that's for a number of reasons that have been around since Samsung's big processing change back with the Galaxy S4 and Note 3. Yep, here we go again, processing issues from a Samsung phone, all centered around removing as much noise in a scene as possible. I feel like a broken record here, but this has been a problem on Samsung phones for generations now, and it's really just annoying at this point, if for no other reason than Samsung's cameras excel at so many other tasks. Low light, daylight, it doesn't matter. Samsung's mantra seems to be that it absolutely must process out every single piece of noise no matter the cost, and while some scenes can look great as a result, most are just too soft for their own good. That's not to say it can't take some great shots, but as we said in the Note 8 review, these pictures are best viewed on a phone screen rather than blown up on a TV or something like that. If you view these on a phone screen, you're going to be very happy here. Samsung's photos are bright, unbelievably well balanced in most regards, and have some of the widest dynamic range of any smartphone out there. In fact, the focus on brightness is generally what makes low light shots look so darn good, and you'll see things in your shots that your eyes won't even pick up on. But again, just don't go zooming in because oftentimes detail is simply not there. Just to be snarky, I put the Galaxy S9 Plus up against the 2016 Google Pixel, and it's pretty interesting how many times the Pixel still bests the Galaxy S9 in every quality measurement. Contrast, color accuracy, and detail are the three cases where the Pixel still beats Samsung's cameras, and generally dynamic range is pretty neck and neck. Move over to the Pixel 2 and the difference is clear. The Pixel 2 wins well more than the majority of the time, and it's all down to software. I haven't been overly happy with Google Camera's split video and picture modes for a while now, and while Samsung's camera at least still retains that excellent design of dedicated shutter and record buttons in auto mode, the rest of the interface redesign is simply awful. Once again, another big industry player has moved further towards iOS design language without seemingly testing whether or not this is a positive move. Modes are now organized in a row of words along the top, and swiping left to right anywhere on the screen changes modes, just like on an iPhone. This is not great for a number of reasons. First off, it's slow and clunky. It takes a full second to change modes, and this is for every mode too, not just a scant few. Sure, you can scroll the row across the top and then click on the word of the mode you want, but this is less efficient and more annoying than just pulling out the grid of modes like we used to have. Second, it's far too easy to swipe between modes on a whim, and particularly on accident. Take this recording session for instance. I'm just trying to flip through modes here, but because of the curvature of the screen, mixed with the fact that there are simply too many swipe gestures, the camera is constantly switching between modes while I'm just trying to use it. Being cold of course doesn't help things. Glass becomes unbelievably slippery in these conditions, so while it's less likely to see this happen in warmer weather, it's still way too easy to do. It's also far too easy to accidentally change the mode while trying to move a slider. Just touch the screen a few pixels off and the mode switches instead of adjusting the thing you wanted. One false move the other way will swap between front and rear cameras, or heck, maybe even make the phone explode. Who knows, but it's annoying and it's just not good design. Go back to the grid of modes please, Samsung, this is terrible. Pro mode is decent, but it feels like Samsung is slowly pulling away from the manual modes rather than embracing them the way LG did. Photo mode gives options for ISO, shutter speed, manual focus, white balance, filters, and presets, while video mode only gives options for shutter speed, focus, and white balance. Curiously enough, ISO locks at whatever it was set to be in Pro photo mode, meaning you have to set the ISO before hitting the record button, as the option to change it grays out the second you hit that record button. It's a bit odd to say the least. The front-facing camera is exactly the same as last year. Same sensor, same quality, same issues in lower light. Soft flash is a little too bright, and in general I found it to be unusable, both because it made me squint way too much, and it just looks harsh and nasty in a shot. I'd rather just not take it if it comes to this. The new selfie focus mode is pretty good, and it does a decent job of separating the foreground from the background to create everyone's favorite bokeh-style blur. This effect can be turned off after the fact if you don't like it, so it makes more sense to just use this mode first and shut off the effect in post. Portrait mode from the rear camera is better, but only mainly on the Galaxy S9 Plus. The biggest difference between these two phones is the inclusion of a 2x zoom lens on the bigger S9 Plus, which gives the phone a physical look at the world more like the way our eyes work. Portrait shots look way better on the S9 Plus because of this, and the shots as a whole simply look fantastic to say the least. Just be aware that it's very light sensitive and will automatically shut off that portrait effect at any sign of lower light. The other positive aspect of the 2x zoom lens is that it works as a way to zoom in a bit without any quality loss, as it's the same sensor and same f-stop 2.4 lens as the main camera. There's no lower light f-stop 1.5 lens here though, so the differences will be more readily apparent in lower light. This lens can be swapped between while recording video, and there's only a tiny pause while the software moves the image from one sensor to the other. The biggest difference between the two comes in focus times, where that second sensor takes significantly longer to focus in on the right thing than the main one. It's noticeable, but not a significant issue by any means, and being able to zoom losslessly could be priceless if you're recording your child in a play or other difficult situation that requires a bit of zooming in to get the job done. Also notable is the clarity of the audio recording from the phone. It's simply fantastic and sounds much better than most other phones by a significant amount. It's a quality often overlooked by many OEMs, but Samsung picked out a nice set of mics here and it really sounds like it. Lastly is the new super slow motion recording, which at this point is the best implementation of the technology we've seen yet. While Sony offers better quality on their Xperia XZ line of phones, Samsung's software design here is smarter. While Sony only offers a manual mode at this point, Samsung defaults to an automatic mode that captures super slow motion video when movement is detected in this little yellow box here. As a reminder, this is 720p resolution at 960 frames per second. That means that the Galaxy S9 now ties with Sony flagships as supporting the absolute slowest motion in the industry. Quality overall is decent, but it's really only usable in very bright light. You can see from this picture that the indoor lighting should be sufficient to capture the bubbles in the champagne, but switching over to the super slow-mo mode, looks like I turned all the lights off in the room. So basically it's awesome when you can use it, but the scenarios are very limited, and you have to stand very far back from the subject because it's such a cropped shot. All in all, the Galaxy S9 and S9 Plus have fantastic cameras, but are not without significant flaws either. Samsung's tagline for this phone is nice, but it doesn't really live up to expectations of being revolutionary in the quality department. And this sort of proves that change isn't always for the better. We hope you enjoyed that review and will subscribe to us for regularly updated content. Chat with us on your favorite social media network, and don't forget to check out AndroidHeadlines.com for 24/7 tech news coverage. Thanks for watching, and until next time.